So, y'all want to get in the cannabis industry, huh? Let's talk about the taxes then. What's going on, everybody? My name is Big Al and welcome to Financial Fridays. A friend of mine took me to a cannabis dispensary last night. I've never been in one before because I just don't partake of it. To each his own. It's just not for me. As I see fit right now. They were really convincing about the whole medical aspects. I don't know, man. That's beyond me, but I'm here to talk to you about the taxes, all right? Now, the thing is, I understand everybody's like, oh, man, Big Al, listen to me, man. In California, cannabis industry is legal. I can start selling this stuff, man, back like the old days. And I'm like, yeah, but let's think this thing all the way through. You could go for it, but it's gonna cost a little bit more money than you was expecting, I would say. I understand that the cannabis industry is like a $7 billion industry, even though we all know it's way more than that. But it's neither here nor there. What I want to explain exasperatively to you all is that the IRS expects to bring in about $2.8 billion in taxes from cannabis sales. Now for the state of California, they're expecting $530 million in tax income. That's just for 2017. For 2018, they're projecting about $650 million in tax income just to the state of California from the cannabis industry. So when it comes to the taxation of companies in the cannabis industry, most government agencies break down the cannabis industry into 4 main components. You've got your manufacturers, you've got your cultivators, you've got your distributors, and then you've got your retailers. Now, of course, there's a bunch of different types of other businesses that would all be folded into or comprised in this business. You know, they got micro businesses. Then you have a nursery. You've got processors, dispensaries, collectives, and cooperatives. You also have testing facilities, man. Testing facilities. For the IRS, they have this subsection of the Internal Revenue Code, subsection 280E, that states let's talk about from the federal standpoint, there's a potential that you might not be able to write off a lot of those expenses associated with running your cannabis business. So that presents an issue, presents a problem. First of all, you're gonna need to get a seller's permit, all right? Second of all, you're gonna need to get a cannabis tax permit. Third, you're gonna have to file regular cannabis tax returns. You gotta pay sales and use tax on what you sell. They got an exclusion if it's for certain medicinal purposes. You might have an exclusion of sales and use tax. Then you have to pay excise taxes, a cultivation tax. In California, as of January 1st, 2018, they introduced 2 new taxes to the sale of cannabis in the state. Number one, they got a 15% excise tax that has to be included and paid by the purchaser on every single cannabis purchase that they make. And that's 15% of the average market price of your retail sale. Then you have a cultivation tax. With this cultivation tax, you have to pay $9.25 per ounce of cannabis flower that you cultivate. Then you have to pay $2.75 for every ounce of cannabis leaf. And then finally, $1.29 per ounce of cannabis fresh plant. Now, with all these taxes introduced and on the federal level not being able to write off the expenses associated with them, it presents a highly unregulated industry, even though regulations seem to somewhat be put in, but there's not a lot in comparison to industries. Think about the mortgage industry back in 2007. We thought it was regulated. It's a financial situation. But there were so many things that were missing, just like in this industry. So that's why they call it the wild, wild west of times if you want to get into the cannabis industry. However, the higher the risk, the higher the return. That's a very high risk game. And if you want to play it, make sure that you keep up with the numbers because they can shut that bad boy down if you ain't playing by the rules. Another thing, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but a lot of banks are avoiding the deposits of cannabis industry or cannabis businesses because it's still considered an illicit business. And the federal government still doesn't completely say that it's legal. It's all per state statute. Now, a lot of these cannabis businesses, They're collecting cash, y'all. I'm talking about cash money, and they're holding on to it, which presents a bevy of security issues and security risks. I talked to one employee of a cannabis business, and she said that they get paid in cash every single day at the end of the day. So just think about it. If you're making like 20 bucks an hour and you work 10 hours for that day, you're getting $200 in cash every single day. The reason I said 10 hours is because from what I understand, some of them even work their employees longer than 8 hours a day without paying them overtime. Once again, I'm not sure if that's legal or not. I gotta check, you check with an attorney, but there's so much going on. So what needs to happen is that there are a lot of cannabis companies that are making tons of money and they can't put it in the bank, because once they put it into the bank and the bank finds out that, hey, wait a minute, all these deposits are coming from the cannabis business, they shut the bank account down. The person has to get their money out and start another bank account. And there are some cannabis companies that are starting like, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 bank accounts in a year, just putting their money from one account to another account to another account. So you have to have a way, a repository for all this money, this cash, and you have to be able to flip it, turn around, use it, and reinvest it back into the business very quickly, or else you'll face quite a bit of issues. And as well as quite a bit of taxes, like 40-50% in taxes to the IRS or the federal government on the money. So how are you going to pay them? All right? Because if you can't put it in the bank, you can't electronically pay them. And then you get penalties for cash deposits of taxes that are too high. So there's a lot to be said about this. From what I understand, there's a bill of safe banking of 2017 being introduced. It hadn't been formally voted on and approved, but that should help out the issue. Another thing I heard from a solution standpoint is that companies are even starting other companies, management companies, and then they're paying money that they receive from selling cannabis, paying the management company for, let's say, rent or management services, consultation, so on and so forth, and then depositing the money in the bank from that management company. But then banks are getting hip to that and shutting down those bank accounts as well. All in all, what I'm saying is that you have to do your due diligence, and you have to make sure that you know what you're dealing with and you understand the risks associated with starting a cannabis industry business. Security risks are high, financial risks are high, tax risks or the implications of taxes are high. I don't mean you shouldn't do it, but once again, the high risk, high reward, or high return. Just be aware of it, make sure that you keep up with your paperwork, and hit your boy up if you got any questions about it. All right? Y'all keep it pushing. I love my mama. It's going down.